Hi all. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. My name is Amira and my channel is all about trying new makeup, talking about new makeup, but also finding new and exciting ways to be inspired by the makeup you already own. If that sounds good to you, I hope you consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed today's video, hitting the like button. Today we are diving into part 2 of my eyeshadow palette declutter videos. This is probably going to be the last or second to last video of my declutter series. I have one more that I'm thinking of doing, which isn't really a declutter so much as a use it or lose it type of video. So let's dive in, and we are going to start with my Kaleidos collection. I have 6 palettes from Kaleidos. Let's start off with one of my all-time faves, which is the Kaleidos Futurism. What is that weird noise? I don't know. This is what it looks like. It's beautiful. It is stunning. I will not be getting rid of this. I love this palette and I don't think you can get it anymore, so definitely holding on to that. I then have the Lunar Lavender. Looks like this. I love this palette, specifically these shimmers here. So stunning, beautiful. Keeping that. The Astro Pink palette. Surprisingly, even though this is an older palette, this is newer to my collection and I haven't gotten that much use out of it, so I think I'm going to keep it. I purchased this. It was part of a bundle, like a duo, with the Club Nebula palette that the collab they did with Angelica Nyquist, and so I bought this along with Club Nebula. So I've had these about the same amount of time. I will be holding on to this. I don't know if it will stay. I feel like if I haven't used this in the next 6 months, I might declutter it. I then have the Futurism Electro Turquoise. Looks like that. I think I'm actually going to declutter this, guys. I got rid of a similar color story, and I think it's just because these colors, as beautiful as this is, I just don't reach for this very often, and I don't feel that feeling that I used to feel when I opened it up, which was excited to use it. So I think I'm actually going to do away with this one. Another one that will be getting decluttered is my Flower Punk palette that looks like that. This was featured in a video I did about palettes that I was wondering if I would repurchase them today if they went on sale, and this is one of the ones where I was like, probably not, and I still feel that way, so I am going to declutter it. And finally, we have my Club Nebula palette, which is the collab they did with Angelica Nyquist. This palette I'm on the fence about. I didn't purchase this when it first came out. I was on the fence about buying it then, and I haven't used it a ton. I will say, when I have used it, I've really enjoyed it, but the section that I tend to use the most are these shades here. Don't dig your nail in a mirror. These shades here and like that shade. I don't use the shimmers that much. This green is amazing. This lime green is amazing. I tend to like these jewel tones here. I don't play with a lot of the other tones. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same as I'm doing with the Astro Pink. I'm going to give it another 6 months, and if I'm still kind of like not reaching for it, I'm going to get rid of it. Ace Beauté palettes here, and I have 2. I've gotten rid of the other 2 that I owned, but I still own the Flare palette, which looks like this, and this is the OG formula. This is not the updated formula, but I do really love this color story. Hello, how are you? Yeah, what's up? Hold please, I've got a needy kitty cat. All right guys, I'm back. Disaster averted. The cat has been saved from, you know, life. So I don't know, I really like this color story, but again, this is another one that I haven't reached for a ton. I think I'm gonna do away with it. As much as I love it and I have used this, I just haven't reached for it a ton lately. I'm gonna do away with this one. I will be keeping my Oceanic. Again, this is the OG formula, but I never had any issues with this formula, so I don't see the point in repurchasing this. But yeah, I'm going to hold on to this. I think this is a beautiful palette. I mentioned this in that same video about talking about palettes that I didn't know if I would repurchase. And I know for a fact I won't repurchase this. And I know for a fact that this will be getting decluttered. I have my other Huda Beauty palette over there somewhere. But this one, as beautiful as this is, the tones just don't translate on the eye the way they look in the pan. I've got hard pan on some of these metallics. I will say the metallics are the star of the show in this, but yeah, this wasn't what I wanted it to be and what I thought I was purchasing when I got it. So I'm going to do away with that. My other Huda Beauty palette, the only other full size that I own is Empowered, and this is not going anywhere. I love this palette. It's beautiful. I picked it as one of my favorite products of 2022. Beautiful palette. I love it. Stays. Next up, I have my 3 Give Me Glow palettes here. First up, I have Vintage Rose. This is one of my all-time favorite. Give Me Glow makes one of my favorite formulas, and this is one of my, if not my favorite, I think it's my favorite palette from them. I love this palette. It's stunning. It doesn't go anywhere. Christmas Morning. I don't use this for as much, but oh my God, I love this. It is very Christmassy, but this green metallic, I mean, oh, look at that. It's like wet. It's like, oh. Their formulation is just so stunning. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then next up, I have the Pastel Dreams palette. This one is one of those palettes that, like, I don't regret buying it, but it also doesn't fill my heart with joy. You know what I mean? Do you have palettes like that? Like, I feel like it serves a purpose in my collection, but it's like a very utilitarian purpose. And so I feel like I'm going to hold on to this, but it's not because I'm like in love with it. Does that make sense? 2 Unearthly Cosmetics palettes. You guys have seen these featured on my channel. I did reviews on both of these. They recently restocked them for the final time, and I'm kind of bummed. I kind of wish I had waited, because as cool as this packaging is, I really like the plain packaging that they had, and it was cheaper. So if you were able to get your hands on this with the restock, the final restock, good on you. You spent $20 less than I did, and you got in what I feel like is more packaging that you can sort of, it's more universal. It's not so specific as this is, as specifically Halloween-y as this is. Same goes for this one. They have this one in like a pretty purple packaging now, plain packaging. And I wish I'd gotten it in that. But I still think both of these palettes are beautiful. They're not going anywhere in my collection. I think they're beautiful palettes. I just kind of wish I'd gotten the regular pack, the like boring plain packaging. Next up is my One Lowest Cosmetics palette, which is the Meet Me in the is it the Underworld? Yeah. Beautiful, keeping, stunning, beautiful formulation. Really enjoy. Next up, I have my Michaela Pot 2 Glamlite palette. This was the first Glamlite palette I ever purchased. I really enjoy this palette. I love the formulation. I love the color story. Greens are my faves. I just recently purchased that Chucky palette, guys, which I am not a Chucky person by any means. But that color story, though, I was like, sold. So I do have another Glamlite on its way to me, but this is the one that I have in my possession, and I'm going to be keeping it because I love the green. I love the color story. I think it's beautiful. I have no opinion about the person who they collabed with, by the way. I don't care. Thanks. Next up is my Cosmic Brushes palette. I have never featured this on my channel because I haven't used this yet, guys. It's one of those palettes that I kept saying, I need to get to, and I've never used it. I'm not getting rid of this, of course. What I've decided to do is I recently ordered the Muse palette, and I ordered it in the pre-order after it sold out in like 5 seconds. And I think I'm just going to do a video featuring both palettes at the same time. I'm really excited to use this. Maybe I don't know. It's so pretty. This isn't going anywhere. Look how beautiful that color story is. So stunning. But yeah, I haven't used this yet. Next up is my One Blend Bunny palette. This was in my makeup capsule for January. Stunning, beautiful. I love this palette. I'm more of a fan of the mattes than I am the metallics, but this is one of the reasons why I felt okay with decluttering my ABH Soft Glam, because this has a lot of the shades the tones that I love from that palette here, and I think the formula is just as good. So there we go. Next up, I have my 2 Collab Beauty palettes, which were originally Muse. So I have the Van Gogh, which I love. Look at that color story. Oh, I love this palette. So stunning. Formula's great. Love it. And then I picked up right around the holidays and right before they announced they were closing, the Honoré palette. And I haven't used this yet, but look how beautiful that is. So now I'm like, oh, they're closing, or they've closed, and I own this now. And it's kind of like, wow, that's kind of sad. But at the same time, I'm glad I got it when I did, you know. So yeah, I have these two. They are both staying. I have my Persona Identity palette. This is the original one in the OG packaging. Look how old that packaging is. I think this packaging is better than the new one, but whatever. But this is old and it still slaps. It still slaps. This is just, it's such a basic, boring palette, but that's what makes it great. That's what makes it work for me. I enjoy this palette a lot. I have my It's Frickin' Bats palette with Butte Beam, now Batty Bean, and Shroud. Looks like this, and this is one of the best color stories that I have seen in a good long while. Yeah, this is just a beautiful palette. The formula's great, the palette's great. I love it all. Like, no complaints. I've used this numerous times. I love it. It stays. I have an OG LH Cosmetics palette here. This is Metallic Mysteries 2. I haven't used this in ages, but I can't bear to part with it because you can't get this anymore. And it is a baked formula. And this shade right here, Collision, it is very, very, very similar to a Pat McGrath special shade. Like so similar as to be identical. And I'm gonna have to find the shade that I'm talking about specifically. I believe it is in, it's either in Bronze Seduction or I think it's Bronze Seduction. I think that's the one I'm thinking of. I'll have to take another look, but this shade is very similar. This is Collision. I'm not touching it because that's how glittery it is, and I just don't want to have glitter all over the place, but it's a stunning shade. These shades I like as well. What I don't like is they're not as impactful on the eye as you would want them to be, but they're still really pretty. And like I said, you can't get this anymore, and so I'm loath to part with it, so I'm going to keep it. Next up, I have my Lone Nars palette. I decluttered the last one that I had. So this is the Last Man Standing, and it's Last Man Standing because it's beautiful. It's perfect. Look at her. This is the Nars Climax palette. She stays. She's beautiful. She's one of my faves. Next up, I have two palettes from the, gosh, I've got schmutz all over this. This is one of those packages that collects everything and it just looks dirty. I have the Soft and Sultry palette from Milani. This is one of their old palettes, the old formulation. Can you see how much use I've gotten out of this? Can you see that? Like, especially that shade. Look at that. Like, what the hell, Amira? Isn't that amazing? I love that for me. I love this palette. It stays. I really wish they hadn't discontinued these. I used to recommend this palette all the time, and now you can't get it. But this is, to me, a perfect travel palette. This is a perfect cool tone palette. This palette for me, I was able to do so much with. I was even able to do my brows with this because look at the tones of the browns, the brown mattes. You can do, I used to mix and be able to get my perfect brow shape with these. And then I had shades for my eyes as well. I love this palette. Another one that I have that I think I'm going to finally do away with is the Bold Obsessions palette. I've held onto this forever, but I keep saying I'm going to use it and then I never do. So I'm just going to like admit to myself that I'm never going to use this and do away with it. All right, so in my last declutter video, part 1, I talked about the Juvia's Place Violets mini palette, and I was saying that I had another purple palette that I was comparing it to, and this is the palette. This is the, what is this? The Violet Ink palette from Menagerie, and I don't think you can get this anymore. I purchased this, guys, and then I never used it because I had such a hard time with this. When I got it, it was broke. One of the shades was broken, and then I got a new one, and these are just so fragile. They're also so pigmented as that they stain. Like, I haven't used these on my eyes. I swatched these, and on my fingers I had the hardest time getting these shades off my fingers, which made me very frightened for my eyelids. I don't know. Part of me wants to try this and part of me wants to not. I don't know. What I might do is take these shades out, the ones that I want to keep, like 3 Hearts and Mimic, and do away with the rest. I'm thinking but I really want to ponder that for a little while. But yeah, this one's kind of on the chopping block. I then have the Desert Lights palette from Flower Beauty. This palette I have a love-hate relationship with. I love Love the textures of this. But there's something about these that are they're so heavy and oily, which makes them beautiful. But it makes them hard to, look at that. I mean, look at that. Do you see how but do you see what I mean? How it looks almost oily, like it's wet on my hand. While that is really great in theory, it can make it very hard to get a blend that I'm happy with. It oftentimes feels like it's just a little patchy and like muddy when you blend them out. And these are all like metallic-y type shades. But do you see how much of a cream base this almost has, like a wet base that you can blend it out almost to the point of a satin. But the problem with that is I feel like on the eye, it just doesn't translate well. So while I love it, I'm just like, should I keep this? Should I not keep this? These shades are just, I mean, do you see what I mean? Do you see my conundrum here? These shades are just, guys, they're just, and for a drugstore palette to have this kind of textures in it, I'm just so blown away by it a lot of the time. But it doesn't function as well as I would like, but I honestly still really like it. Like, I still get enjoyment using it. I just think I'm gonna have to stop trying to use it as a cohesive palette and maybe just use it as a companion palette. And that's still on my hand despite me wiping it off. So now I've got like a brown stripe across my hand. Lovely, love that for me. All right. Next up, these are items that were in the bottom of one of my eyeshadow drawers and I completely forgot about them. So these are not eyeshadow palettes. Well, one of them is and one of them isn't. So I have two highlighting palettes. This is my MAC Hyper Real Glow, which I have not used in ages. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but I was really into this for a very long time. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it. I haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to say no because I forgot I even had it. Like, I forgot I had this, guys. Like, I was cleaning out, you know, the great thing about doing Declutter, I was cleaning off my makeup table and this was hidden behind my Too Faced palettes. And I was like, what? Oh yeah, that. So I think that's a sign that I should probably just do away with it, even though these are very beautiful, but I think I'm just gonna, the fact that I didn't know I had it means it's almost like I don't even have to, I can just continue to pretend like I don't have it by not having it, you know? This is a very old Moira blush duo, like when Moira was first coming, you know, first blowing up, and they were at the makeup show here in my city and I purchased this and I think I've used this maybe twice. It's actually quite lovely, but yeah, this is so old and I don't use this, so I'm gonna do away with it. I'm really interested in their cream blushes though, but that one I can do away with. And then my two LA Girl. Someone in my comments when I did my drugstore makeup video said that they're like, oh, you should try LA Girl. And I'm like, I actually have tried LA Girl. And I was like, wait a minute. I still have the LA Nudist palette, which I decluttered this in 2021. And then I took it out of my declutter because I was like, girl, why did you declutter that? Do you see how beautiful this is? It's so basic, but this is such a good formulation, guys. So, I mean, if you want my recommendations for brands, you know, drugstore brands that have decent formulations for eyeshadows, I think LA Girl, especially for the price point. This is such a beautiful palette and I dug it out of my declutter and I think I'm gonna keep it. I think it's a nice little palette to have. This is the Moonlight Magic highlighting palette from LA Girl, and I used this shade here. I don't even know if this has a name. I don't think it does. This one here. I used this shade so much. I don't even know if you can see it on my hand here. I used that so much when I first got this palette. It was like one of my go-tos. That's why it's like a bit of a dent in it. But I haven't used this in ages. And again, I just got rid of one highlighting palette. I feel like it's time to get rid of this one as well. All right, guys, let's get to the big kahunas in the game. So let me stack these up for fast. All right. You see what we're about to do here? Now, I'm gonna say this, guys. I don't know if any of this is getting decluttered. This is my Natasha Denona collection. And even if it's a palette that I don't really love, I would keep it for reference, you know? Because they're good to have for reference, especially now that I do this thing here on YouTube. If I weren't doing this thing on YouTube, would I declutter a couple of these? Probably. But I do YouTube now, so I have to take that into consideration. And I do love having these as a frame of reference, especially since some of the times, well, in this case, a lot of the times recently, she has released palettes that have shades that are very comparable to shades that she has in other palettes. And so having a healthy collection of those is a good thing for me. I just realized I forgot my mini palettes. Let me go grab. Hey guys, I'm back. I grabbed my minis. I almost forgot my drawer of mini palettes. So we'll go through those next after we do this little collection here. So these are my babies, my little babies. So this is my mini retro. She goes nowhere. I love her. This is my mini tropic. I actually really like this too. I get a lot of use. I love this. I love that this is such a curated little mini, like colorful color story. And these are the best shades from the Tropic palette. So, yeah. Mini gold. I haven't used this a ton recently, but I do enjoy having it. And I love that it is sort of a cooler toned color story. This is the 5-pan number 5, or no, 5-pan number 8. She discontinued all of her 5-pans, which I'm just like, ma'am, how dare you? So I'm really happy that I have this because you can't get them anymore. And there's one that I wanted, which I believe is palette number 3. And I'm so upset. It's either number 3 or I think it's number 3. You can't get it. And you can get the shades, but you have to own either the blue palette and the purple palette, you know, the big ones that are like $230 each. Ma'am. Really? Yeah, so I'm happy to have this because you can't get it anymore and it's beautiful. And I always feel like this is what the blueprint for the retro palette was. I mean, look at those shades. It's like they're all satins and metallics though. There's no mattes in this. This is the Camel palette 5-pan. Love this one. I have issues with hard pan on that shade, but you know what? I'm willing to work with it because I do like the color story. I then have my Circo Loco, like this. Got shadows all over it. Love this palette. The thing that I love about Natasha Denona's palettes, and I think why they, for me, they bring so much value outside of just the color stories that you purchase when you purchase the palette, is that all of these palettes, all of the shades in these palettes are removable. They're interchangeable. So by having such a healthy, robust collection of her palettes, I have so many single shadows at my disposal if I should need them. And there's something to be said about that. I'm not a huge single shadow person, but I have been really curious about playing around with my Natasha Denona's and maybe creating my own color story with, you know, these palettes, because as much as I love them, I can see so much possibility and I just never sit down to do it. So if you guys want to see me do that, let me know in the comments down below. Would you like to see me sit down and make a custom Natasha Denona palette? Because I would be willing to do it. As long as, I mean, the midis don't fit into the, you know, the full size or vice versa. So it would have to be like a full size or midi. But as you will see, I have quite a robust collection of both. So Circo Loco, not going anywhere. None of these are really going anywhere, guys. Let's just Triclone or Triochrome. Triclone. I'm thinking of my House Labs foundation. Triochrome. I love this palette. This palette was a grower for me. It was like I got it and I was like, okay. Then the more I used it, the more I loved it. By Natasha Denona Gold palette. Stunning. This palette has been through so much with me, has gone places with me, literally traveled with me. Beautiful, stunning. We'll be keeping. One of my favorite palettes of all time, not just Natasha Denona, but of all time, is my Metropolis palette, and it goes nowhere. And as you can see, I'm going to open this back up. Do you see how well loved this is? Like, look at this palette. This is a palette that you can say, oh, you use that a lot. I do. Safari. I don't love this formula. I think she was still really perfecting her cream to powder. But what I love about this is that this is a nice curation of all mattes. And I can take these out and apply, you know, put them with other things. I've been able to dupe out other palettes that I been curious about but didn't want to purchase per se, this has come in handy for that. So for that reason alone, I feel like it's a very useful palette. Now let's get into the middies. This is Midi Zendo. I know a lot of people don't like this palette. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. And I think the formulation is great, but I also think the color story is quite lovely too. Bronze palette. This is another one that I talked so much crap about and then I purchased it and it's become one of my faves. I love this palette. And as you can see, it is very well used and very well loved. The Love palette. I'm actually wearing shadows from this palette today, which is wild because I never use this palette. So I am wearing Soul, what's this one called? Intense, and then Giving. Those are the 3 shades that I'm wearing today. I was originally going to declutter this, but now I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not. I like this palette for the individual shades more than I love it for the complete color story. Sunrise, the first Natasha Denona palette I ever purchased. As you can see, again, well loved. I lived in this zone for a very long time and I've now moved over to this zone and I love this palette, especially the metallics. They're so stunning. Pastel. It is what it is with this palette. It's a pastel palette. I'm not a huge pastel person, but I am glad that I have this because I feel like it's one of those things you can dupe out a lot of shades with this palette, surprisingly. I was shocked at how interchangeable some of the shades, even from like Zendo to this one. So if you you can do some things with this. It's just not my favorite color story. It's not the one that makes my heart sing, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not mad about it. Like, I'm not like, I want my money back. You know what I mean? Retro Glam. Retro Glam. The palette that should have been and could have been had we gotten it when we were supposed to get it. This palette for me is just, I'm not decluttering it because there are shades in here that I like, but I feel like this is a palette that she gave to us because we were not, those of us who loved mini retro and were looking for that color story specifically to be expanded on, that were unhappy with the retro palette that she came out with. I feel like this palette was an afterthought for her. This was a, here you go, leave me alone palette. And as a result, I feel the color story says that. There are things in here that are great. This palette could have been great. As it stands, it's mediocre. The color story is mediocre. Are the shades mediocre? The shades are okay. The formula is okay. But the color story is not inspired. I feel like if she really cared and like, if this was something that she had her heart sunk into, this would have been better. For her, the midi retro that she released was the one that she put her heart into, and that's what she wanted. This was just a, let me satisfy the fangirls, you know, so they'll leave me alone. So that part makes me sad because I feel like if she had put the love into this, it would have been amazing. And next up is my latest Natasha Denona, which is the My Dream palette. And I was on the fence about getting this. But I actually really like this. I still have the tape on. I'm gonna start I used to keep these on all the time and then I started peeling them off, and it works better for filming so that I don't blind you guys and I don't have to worry about like, you know, doing that all the time. But this palette, guys, this palette blew me away. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did, and I do. Yeah, I think this is a stunning, stunning palette. All right, guys, let's go over these mini palettes that I have that were in a drawer that I completely forgot about because it's in a drawer and I hadn't opened it. So first up are these little minis from Colourpop. I'm gonna get rid of these. As much as I think they're pretty, I haven't reached for these in ages and I don't need them, so I'm gonna get rid of them. My Viseart collection has slowly dwindled over the years. I used to have way more and now I just have these. And honestly, guys, here's the thing about Viseart for me. I like Viseart, but I just never reach for these on a regular basis. Like if I'm traveling, I'll grab them. Like I love this palette. This is the Fury palette. It's so beautiful. I mean, look at that. Look at that color, that like curated cool tone color story. Oh, I'm keeping it because it does have some use for me. Same thing with the pralines. It's so stunning. I love this. And these can pop out too, so I can curate a color, you know, a nice color story for myself. But this is the Violet Étendue. I don't think I've ever used this. I've swatched it. I've even used some of these shades to like dupe color stories, but I haven't reached for this, and I've never like been like, let me go use that Étendue, the Violet Étendue. So I think I'm going to do away with this because it's just been sitting there and not getting used, and I can give it to someone who can get some use out of it. Paris Edit. This is one of those palettes where I'm like, I really like it when I use it, but I never think to use it. You know what I mean? It's like if I force myself to use it, if I force me, go use that. I enjoy using it, but I'm never ever waking up going, let me grab that Paris Edit. And so I feel like, guys, I feel like it's time to do away with it. Oh, wow. I was not expecting that. Okay, look at me. Next up, I thought I had another Too Faced, and I forgot I had this little mini called Shake Your Pom Poms. And she looks like this. She's super cute. I never use her anymore, so I'm going to declutter her. I also have this Charlotte Tilbury, and these are from the quads that she came out with. This is the Super Blue quad. I haven't used this in ages, but I picked this as like one of my favorite palettes of 2020, I believe. And I do really like this. I don't want to do away with it, so I'm going to keep it. Another little trio are these CoverGirl Clean Color palettes that I purchased recently for my drugstore video, and I actually really like these, and I haven't had them that long in my collection, so I want to get some more use out of them. I still haven't used this one, although I want to see something here, because the first thing I thought of was this color story, and I want to see just how close they are. I don't think they're like identical because there is a matte in this. Wow, look at that. So I'm just saying, if you liked this color story and you weren't able to get your hands on it, or, you know, you like this color story and it's super expensive and you're like, I'm not spending that kind of money, this is a good option. I'm keeping both because, you know, I'm wild like that, but yeah. All right, so these I have wiped off because they get so many stains, and now they have like those stains from the like wipe. I hate that. Ugh. They have new packaging. This is the old packaging. I used to own all of these. I've decluttered. Did I declutter? I decluttered Baked Browns. So this is Sassy Siennas. This formula is so good. I really want Dose of Colors to like step up their game because they have such good formulas. This is Blushing Berries. I honestly don't want to do away with any of these, guys. They're just such great palettes, and they're such great like travel palettes, and I love the fact that they're like all matte. They came out with a couple that had some shimmers, and I was like, no. I think if I were to do away with one, it'd probably be Marvelous Mauves because it's so cool toned. Yeah, I might do away with Marvelous Mauves. I'll think on that. I might do away with that one. Pretty cool. I love this one. It's super cool toned. This is just like, I mean, look at this. It's so wild how cool toned it is, but I actually really like that, and I love it as like a companion with like metallics. It's so beautiful. Yeah, so that is everything that I am getting rid of. And let me pull it all over into the camera for you guys with this little collection of items, because we do have there we go. So this is what I'm getting rid of with this one so far. We do have my Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette collection, but I am not decluttering literally anything from that at this point, so I don't necessarily want to retread all of that because it's quite a lot. I will say, if you want to see my Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette collection, you can always look back at and I'll try to remember to put a card up, my last declutter, because I did show every single palette that I owned. I also have a ton of like Pat McGrath rankings on my channel, so there are opportunities to see all of those palettes. Today I have no desire to pull them all out just to put them all back for no reason. This is really, for me, this is actual declutter. Like, I'm actually going through things and like trying to get rid of them, whereas with that it would just be to, you know, retread how much I love them. So yeah, so this is the end of this declutter. Let's see how much I decluttered from this round. So let's see. That's 12, and that's including some face palettes. That's not, wait, I forgot some. So that's 15. That's not bad considering that I decluttered about, what was that, what? 20 from the other one. So yes, I did 20 in the first round, part 1, and then I've done 15 here. That is 35 palettes that I have decluttered today, and I am quite proud of myself with that. Yeah, guys, so I think the next video is probably going to be my single shadows. And again, that one is not going to be so much a declutter series. It's really going to be me sort of holding myself accountable about the fact that I do own these single shadows that I'm not using, and really coming up with ways to incorporate them into my collection in a more useful way, to really getting some use out of them. So I'm thinking what I might do is bring all those out and we can maybe play and maybe create a custom palette. I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, so I will see you guys in that video, which will be the next one after this one. As you know, that's how it goes. And if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit the like button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.